My ex-husband mocked me as infertile and unmarriageable. 15 years later, he saw my kids and realized the issue was always him. 15 years after the divorce, an unexpected encounter unfolded outside a grocery store. The ex-husband stood there, looking older and diminished, a stark contrast to the man who once declared no one would marry a woman unable to have children. His smile faded instantly when twin daughters ran up, calling out, "Mom!" He froze, his eyes locked on them, processing the scene. The marriage began right after college, a time when life felt full of promise. He was the driven one, always mapping out the future, career goals, house plans, even the names of the kids he imagined. I supported him, adjusting my own ambitions to fit his vision. I worked a steady job while he climbed the corporate ladder, and I handled most of the household responsibilities. We were a team, or so I thought. 2 years into the marriage, he decided it was time to start a family. I agreed, excited about the idea of building something together. We stopped using birth control and waited. Months passed with no results. At first, we weren't worried, people said it could take time. We tracked ovulation, changed our diets, and avoided alcohol. Still, nothing happened. After a year, frustration set in. He grew distant, his patience thinning. He started making comments, small at first, about how his family had never had issues conceiving. He insisted the problem had to be mine, pointing to his strong genes as proof. I internalized his words, questioning my own body. The doubt crept in, but I pushed it aside, hoping we'd figure it out together. We kept trying, but the strain between us grew. He stopped talking about the future the way he used to. I felt like I was failing him, even though I didn't know why. The decision to see a fertility specialist came after months of tension. He pushed for it, convinced we needed answers. I went along, desperate to fix whatever was wrong. The process was exhausting: blood tests, ultrasounds, and endless appointments. He had to provide samples too, but he acted like it was a formality. The results took weeks. When the doctor called us in, I expected clarity, maybe even hope. Instead, the news hit like a weight. His sperm count was extremely low, and the motility was poor. The doctor explained it made natural conception nearly impossible without intervention. I sat there, processing, tears welling up not because of the diagnosis but because I assumed we'd face it as a unit. He didn't cry. He barely moved, his face blank. He left the room before the doctor finished speaking. In the car, he said nothing. That silence marked the beginning of the end. Over the next week, his behavior changed completely. He stayed out late, claiming work meetings. He refused to discuss further treatments, or even acknowledge the results. When I brought it up, he snapped, saying I was making it harder than it needed to be. Then, he started telling our families and friends I was the reason we couldn't have kids. I overheard him on the phone with his mother, blaming me outright. I confronted him, hurt and confused. He laughed, cold and dismissive, saying no one would believe I was fertile. He called me barren, said no man would want a woman who couldn't give him a family. His words cut deep, shattering the trust I'd placed in him. A month later, he packed a bag and left. No explanation, no apology. I was alone, grappling with the wreckage of a marriage I thought would last forever. The divorce left me in pieces. I moved into a small apartment, barely able to afford the rent after splitting our savings. Nights were the hardest, lying awake, replaying his words, wondering if I was as worthless as he'd made me feel. I stopped going out, avoided friends, and let phone calls go to voicemail. My family tried to help, but I pushed them away, too ashamed to admit how deeply his betrayal had wounded me. I believed, for a long time, that I was the problem, that my body had failed us both. Work became my only escape, a place where I could focus on something other than the emptiness. But even there, I was just going through the motions. It took a year before I agreed to see a therapist. She was patient, never pushing too hard. Through her, I started to untangle the lies I'd been told. She helped me see that my worth wasn't tied to whether I could have children. Slowly, I began to rebuild. I took up hobbies I'd abandoned during the marriage: painting, hiking, things that were mine alone. I reconnected with friends, started saying yes to invitations. I got a promotion at work, moved to a better apartment, and adopted a cat. Dating, though, felt impossible. The idea of opening up to someone new terrified me. I couldn't imagine telling a man about the divorce, the infertility accusations, or the shame I still carried. For years, I didn't even try. I told myself I was fine alone, that I didn't need anyone. But deep down, I wanted connection, a chance to build something real again. 5 years after the divorce, I met someone. It happened unexpectedly, at a friend's dinner party. He was quiet, kind, with a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard. We talked for hours that night, about nothing and everything, movies, travel, our favorite books. He didn't ask about my past, and I didn't volunteer it. We started seeing each other, casual at first. I kept my guard up, waiting for the moment he'd ask about marriage or kids, dreading the conversation. It came 6 months in. We were at his place, cooking dinner, when I finally told him everything: the marriage, the fertility tests, my ex's cruelty, the divorce. I braced for judgment, for him to pull away. Instead, he listened, asked questions, and said we'd figure things out together if I wanted to. His calm acceptance stunned me. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. I said yes, not because I needed a husband, but because I wanted a partner. After the wedding, we talked about family. He didn't care about biology, either did I. We researched adoption, attended seminars, and met with social workers. The process was long: paperwork, home visits, interviews. Eventually, we were approved to adopt from foster care. We chose to adopt 2 sisters, ages 6 and 7. They'd been through trauma, bounced between homes, and trusted no one. The first months were brutal: night terrors, tantrums, and constant testing of boundaries. My husband never wavered. He read to them, helped with homework, and showed up every day. I took a leave from work to focus on them. Over time, they began to relax. They started smiling, talking more, sleeping through the night. By the end of the first year, they called us Mom and Dad. Watching them grow, straight as soccer games, birthday parties, I realized I'd built the family I'd always wanted, just not the way I'd expected. Raising the girls became the center of my world, a responsibility that reshaped every part of my life. They were 7 and 8 when they moved in, carrying backpacks with their few belongings and wary expressions that broke my heart. The older one, Mia, was protective, always watching out for her younger sister, Lily. They'd been in foster care for 3 years, moved between 4 homes, and learned not to trust adults. The first weeks were a crash course in parenting. Mia refused to eat anything but cereal, and Lily screamed if we left her alone for more than a minute. Bedtime was a battle. Both girls would sneak into each other's rooms, afraid to sleep apart. I read every parenting book I could find, but nothing prepared me for the reality of their trauma. My husband and I took turns staying up with them, soothing nightmares, and answering questions about why their birth parents couldn't keep them. We enrolled them in therapy, which helped, but progress was slow. School was another challenge. Mia struggled with reading, and Lily had outbursts that led to calls from teachers. We met with counselors, set up tutoring, and spent hours helping with homework. My husband took on the role of disciplinarian, firm but gentle, while I focused on creating routines: dinner at 6, bedtime stories at 8. Slowly, the girls started to trust us. Mia began joining me in the kitchen, curious about cooking. Lily discovered a love for drawing, covering our fridge with her sketches. By their second year with us, they were different kids, still cautious, but laughing more, arguing like typical sisters, and asking for hugs. I went back to work part-time, managing a marketing team, but made sure I was home for dinner. My husband switched to a less demanding job to be there for after-school pickups. We bought a house with a backyard, something the girls had never had. Watching them run through the sprinkler or build forts with blankets, I felt a pride I'd never known. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were thriving. I stopped thinking about my ex-husband entirely. He was a distant memory, irrelevant to the life I'd built. The girls never asked about him, and I never brought him up. My husband and I agreed early on that family was about choice, not biology, and we wanted them to grow up knowing that. Life with the girls settled into a rhythm, but it wasn't without challenges. By the time they were 10 and 11, they were fully integrated into our world: school plays, sleepovers, and endless questions about everything from dinosaurs to why the sky was blue. Mia excelled in math, joining a gifted program, while Lily found her place on the soccer team, her energy finally channeled. But their past still lingered. Certain triggers, a loud noise, a stranger at the door, could send them into a panic. Mia once hid under her bed for an hour after a fire alarm went off at school. Lily had a meltdown when a teacher raised her voice. We worked closely with their therapists to navigate these moments, learning how to de-escalate and reassure them. My husband and I also faced our own learning curve. We argued sometimes, usually about small things like whose turn it was to handle a parent-teacher meeting or how to balance discipline with empathy. But we always came back to our commitment to the girls. We took them on vacations, camping in the mountains, a week at the beach, creating memories to replace the ones they'd lost. I started a scrapbook, filling it with photos of their milestones: Mia's first science fair win, Lily's goal at a soccer game, both of them grinning at their adoption finalization hearing. The girls began to open up about their early years, sharing fragments of memories: a cold apartment, a foster parent who yelled the day they were separated for a month. Hearing these stories hurt, but it also deepened my resolve to give them stability. I joined a support group for adoptive parents, which became a lifeline. Other parents shared their struggles and victories, and I learned to celebrate small wins, like when Lily started trusting us enough to leave her bedroom door unlocked at night. My career took a back seat, but I didn't mind. I'd found a purpose bigger than promotions or paychecks. My husband and I grew closer through the process, our partnership strengthened by the shared goal of raising the girls. We talked about adopting again. The grocery store encounter unfolded on an ordinary Saturday morning. I was loading bags into the car, the girls helping with the lighter ones, when I saw him. My ex-husband stood near the store entrance, holding a reusable bag, looking like any other middle-aged man doing errands. He was grayer, thinner, nothing like the confident figure from our marriage. I hadn't thought about him in years, and seeing him brought no rush of emotion, just a faint curiosity. He noticed me, hesitated, then approached. His smile was polite but strained. Before he could say anything, Mia and Lily ran up, each grabbing my arm, chattering about what snacks we'd bought. His expression shifted, eyes darting between them and me, clearly thrown by their presence. I introduced the girls, keeping my tone neutral. They said hi, then darted back to the car, calling for their dad. My husband emerged from the driver's side, waving them over to help organize the trunk. My ex-husband's face paled as he watched the scene. He asked if the girls were mine. I said yes, they were adopted, and left it at that. He stood there, processing, his mouth slightly open. He asked to talk privately, away from the car. I agreed, curious but detached. He admitted he'd always assumed I was infertile, that the fertility issues were my fault. I corrected him, stating plainly that the problem had been his low sperm count and motility, as the tests had shown. His face tightened, but he didn't argue. He mumbled an apology, awkward and unconvincing, then mentioned he was remarried, still childless, and his current wife had endured several failed IVF attempts. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. He built a life on a lie, blaming me to protect his ego, and now the truth stood undeniable before him. The girls' laughter from the car broke the silence. I glanced over, seeing them teasing my husband about how he'd packed the groceries. My ex-husband followed my gaze, his eyes lingering on them. I ended the conversation, saying I needed to get home. He nodded, said goodbye, and walked away. I watched him go, feeling nothing, not anger, not triumph, just a quiet certainty that I'd moved beyond him. Revenge was never my goal. I didn't need it. The life I'd built with my husband and daughters was enough, more than enough. That moment at the grocery store, watching my ex-husband see my family, wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about seeing how far I'd come. Mia and Lily, now teenagers, were growing into themselves, strong, curious, and kind despite their early hardships. They had a home, a family, and a future. My husband, who'd chosen this life with me, was the partner I'd once hoped my ex could be. As I drove home that day, the girls singing along to the radio, I realized I didn't need closure from my ex-husband. His words, his cruelty, his abandonment, they'd shaped me, but they didn't define me. I'd found my worth in therapy, in the love I gave and received, in the family we'd created. The scrapbook on our coffee table held proof of it, photos of the girls at science fairs, soccer games, and quiet moments at home. My ex-husband's life, whatever it was now, didn't matter. He'd spent 15 years clinging to a false narrative, while I'd spent those years building something real. The girls didn't know about him, and they didn't need to. They knew they were chosen, loved, and safe. That was the story that mattered.